Hi, I'm Jeff Boyd, Democratic candidate in the March 20th, 2018 primary election for the Rock Island County Sheriff.
And I'm Ann Boyd.
We wanted to talk to you about a few issues that have come up since the last time we spoke to you, which was September 11th, 2014. This is a video in a series of videos that we are trying to address various questions I have received and spoke to many of you in going to your door, trying to be as transparent as possible with what we went through and the various reasons why we did some of the things we did. One of the questions I get quite often is, why didn't you speak after you announced your letter of resignation on September 11, 2014? The primary reason is I held my hand over a Bible and I swore to the terms of that Alford plea agreement. And the Alford plea agreement, if you go back to the original court documents, it refers to the female in those documents by initials, AF. The purpose of that was to try to help protect her identity. The belief was that I was so overwhelmingly popular, and all these various things that the Attorney General negotiated for is that she should or could and somehow be in danger of ridicule or other things. I agreed to that as part of the Alford plea agreement. So I couldn't talk about the situation for fear of revealing her identity, even if it was to talk about things I'm perfectly comfortable talking about now. Things of where I knew her from and how I met her. Things that may give you an idea of the identity. And to be quite honest, the week that I was no longer here, her name got out. And the Illinois State Police, who were brought in from the outside of this area and district to investigate because it was believed they had no conflict with me, came back and questioned some of you guys on how did you get her name. I think they were looking to see if I violated my agreement, which I didn't. I've never spoken about her name. In March of 2015, when she became the plaintiff in the federal lawsuit of Andrea Favela versus Jeffrey Boyd et al., she became public. And so I'm very comfortable talking about her name. Her name is Andrea Favela, although now her name is Andrea Fonseca. She is married to the Illinois State Police investigator, Jorge Fonseca, that they brought in from the Chicagoland area, who was to have no conflict, supposedly, with me. He was the lead translator in this case and one of the lead investigators. And I do believe he is still actively involved with the federal case. And by that I mean he is a witness for her potentially and for me. I do hope that Andrea and Jorge have found what they're looking for, and I wish them the best of luck in the future. And I would like to reiterate to Andrea that I truly am sorry for the mistake I made and any sort of discomfort you may have had or continue to have with this case. Having said that, this case was never what it was purported to be, and much of that, my belief, is because I didn't talk. But again, I made a promise that I wouldn't. Now I can. So to give you a quick idea of how I know Andrea Fonseca, I met her late October, early November 2013 at a gym that we went to. We began a platonic friendship that included many conversations almost on a daily basis, both through text and through personal contact, much of it at the gym that we went to. This personal relationship evolved into her asking me for my business card, which had my telephone, my cell number on it, and she initiated the text with me. That was the beginning of my textual relationship with Andrea Fonseca, or also known as Andrea Favela. Sometime after the holidays, in 2013, early 2014, I began to try to help her gain legal status in this country. Her status in this country was illegal. She had told me that. And in the process of doing that, I attempted to validate and potentially become a sponsor to present her on the federal level, kind of from jumping behind in the line to the front of the line, based upon her story that she had been victimized. In the process of doing that, different things came up that made me question whether or not she was truly who she said she was. There were numerous aliases out there. There was suspended license or privileges to drive having been suspended, which equated to a no valid driver's license. And through all of this, it shifted from me trying to help her to me investigating her. And it was during that time that I made the mistake that I ultimately stepped down about. At the point that I wrote her a traffic citation, dated April 2nd, 2014, I should have turned that over to another agency that did not have any sort of conflict with her. I did not. That is the legal mistake that I made. Additionally, as I mentioned before, I sincerely regret sending the one and only vulgar text to her after she took off in traffic from me. That was wrong. There's no place for that, and I do apologize. What I'd like you folks to hear is from my wife and some of the things that she experienced and felt during that time. Yes.
So it was about late August. That was the time that Jeff brought me in and told me what was going to be happening, which was very frightening, actually. It was unexpected, and you can only imagine probably being in my shoes. And it was a tough conversation. And we had to make some big decisions. But I remember him explaining to me about how this woman who he had a friendship with had come in and made some absolute serious allegations against him in a formal complaint. And when I hear that, I'm thinking, here she's making some claims, these allegations about him following her. She feared for her life. She was concerned that he would not leave her alone, and she, didn't like this, all of this. And those are very serious allegations to make against the top law enforcement official in Rock Island County. And when he told me that, of course, I'm like, okay. So she comes in the second week of August, and she's telling a Hispanic organization locally, she's telling them...
Second week of April.
Second week of April. Thank you. The Hispanic organization to go to the Moline Police Department that takes her to the state's attorney's office. She's gone through, she's navigating this process. She's making these allegations to these people that are in positions to change this for her, that are in powerful positions, that are in elected positions. She's going through the right channels, I guess I would believe. And so I'm sitting there thinking to my husband, all right, this woman is saying these serious things about you. Why didn't you stop? I don't get it. And he looks at me, and, I couldn't believe what came out of his mouth. It was, no one told me. I didn't know, Ann. I mean, literally days before, we're sitting in the sauna at DePate's gym, where they worked out, he worked out, she worked out, having a conversation, and then a few days later, she's making these allegations against the sheriff of Rock Island.
And that was after I wrote her a citation, after giving her 2 warnings to quit driving. during the process of trying to help her, I'd found out she didn't have a driver's license, and she repeatedly would drive in front of me. And I told her, you can't do it. And actually, I couldn't understand because the state of Illinois, in the winter of 2012, had adopted a policy that even if you were living in the shadows, you could get a license, and you could get a valid license. Well, I found out later, through the federal action, that she was pretty confident driving because she had assumed somebody else's identity down around Beardstown, Illinois, and had received a valid license under that identity to drive by the Secretary of State. So part of my suspicions were how outwardly blatant she was about some of the things she did. That fed or fueled my suspicions, and anybody that knows me knows that once I get on something, I do everything I can possibly do. When I'm in, I'm all in. And to Ann's point that nobody told me, the way something like that is typically handled is a complaint is made and people are interviewed because that complaint is a serious allegation. And that allegation, it's one side of a story, hasn't been proven, it hasn't been admitted to, but the whole idea is to deter anything from happening. And so I think what Ann's trying to express is nobody really treated it as such.
Well, exactly. It's I couldn't understand what would be lost or what the harm would be to go across the way and say, by the way, this woman made these serious allegations against you, and then it would have been a done deal. And instead, from what we could see from what happened, is she even had a couple more interviews and people asked questions, and she, and I think it was our documents would show April 15th, it was asked that some Illinois State Police be involved outside the area. And then on April 28th, it culminated into, we're going to kick this up
to the Attorney General because the local folks had a conflict.
And he still didn't know.
I was the sheriff.
At that time, he still didn't know.
One thing I think that's important, it was in June, the middle of June to late June, that I found out the Illinois State Police was investigating, and by that I mean interviewing, one deputy at that time. And they ultimately interviewed two. And upon finding that out, I went to them. I contacted them. I had numerous telephone conversations with them, and that culminated in me voluntarily meeting with them on July 8th, 2014.
Which, by the way, was about 2 months since her complaint, that you had no knowledge and no one said a word.
Until I knew that they were investigating. So it was only on July 8th that I found out that the Attorney General was handling this complaint. On July 2nd, I'd had a conversation with the Rock Island County State's Attorney, John McGeehee, in which I presented all my evidence, my story, everything to him, and he told me to turn it over to Special Agent Fonseca, Andrea's husband, which I did. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of the background of all that because I never spoke about it. And again, I do want to let you people know the main reason I never spoke about it is because I promised I wouldn't. And there will be more videos. There are some specific things that I think you guys might find of interest that involved in that investigation, and stay tuned. Again, thank you. My cell number, if you want to reach out, 309-948-4205, or my email, sheriffjeffboyd@gmail.com. Again, thank you.
Thanks.